Washington Post reports Germans no longer want to give more military aid and support to Ukraine. German public opinion has changed its attitude towards Russia. People there are freezing, obviously. The American newspaper Washington Post conducted an online poll of 1,000 Germans between September 14 and October 6, 2022, and found that the majority of Germans do not want any more military aid to Ukraine, nor new anti-Russian sanctions, nor welcome the country to other Ukrainian refugees. In fact, the poll shows a society under pressure from the problems created by anti-Russian sanctions that have caused an alarming rise in unemployment and inflation. A key role in the conversion of German public opinion is also played by the fact that the Germans, albeit slowly, began to understand that the only winners from the Ukrainian conflict are the Americans. In fact, it was the American design from the beginning by which the US managed to put Europe under energy hostage and cause a wave of industrial collapse, which they intend to exploit in favor of their own industries. About the characteristics of the poll, the newspaper says, "We use statistical tools to obtain results that reflect the German population by age, gender, and state. We asked a series of questions about the war in Ukraine and what respondents thought about Germany's efforts to help. The survey put under the approval of the citizens of Germany 4 different scenarios of support for Ukraine: increasing sanctions on Russia and Putin, even though those sanctions may lead to further increases in food and gas prices; sending more missiles and other military equipment to Ukraine, even if it increased Germany's military budget; accepting more refugees from Ukraine, even if this puts an additional burden on the economy of Germany; accepting Ukraine into NATO, even if it means that Germany will commit to defending Ukraine militarily in the future." Most Germans, 91%, express at least some sympathy for Ukrainians. However, a majority, 54%, believe their country has already done enough, 37%, or too much, 17%, to help Ukraine's military efforts and refugees. Overall, about 30% of Germans oppose each of the 4 aforementioned policies, while about 70% express some degree of support. But if we break down support by the degree of agreement in support, the evidence now shows German reluctance. While less than half, 40%, strongly support more sanctions, even fewer support either giving Ukraine more weapons or accepting more refugees, only 31% strongly support each policy. Strong support for Ukraine joining NATO is even lower, at just 26%. In other words, German support for an increase in their military aid or humanitarian aid is low. Former East Germans are even less willing to support Ukraine than those in former West Germany. This national snapshot, however, also shows the important difference between the old East and West Germany. East Germans are more opposed to all 4 Ukrainian support policies than West Germans by a wide margin. For example, only 27% of West Germans respondents oppose increasing military aid to Ukraine. 52% of East Germans strongly disagree. This is consistent with a more positive attitude towards Russia and greater skepticism towards NATO. But if Germans are more willing to sacrifice their family budgets than spend in weapons or take in refugees, energy costs are clearly not as critical as analysts thought. On the contrary, 2 other factors seem to be the main ones for the freezing of German citizens' mood towards Ukraine. The first is the commitment to military non-intervention that the nation has cultivated since the end of World War II. This legacy of the war leads many Germans to adopt an attitude of military restraint and an aversion to military involvement. Until now, Germany's self-perception as a bourgeois power has become a key part of its identity, which is difficult to change. The same history, including the memory of German cities being bombed, may also influence the reluctance of Germans to become directly involved in the conflict. Washington Post says, in her view, the German government's decision to send weapons to Ukraine to fight Russian aggression was a revolutionary change in its foreign policy, which had a fundamental commitment not to intervene militarily outside of Germany's borders. German aircraft and troops took part in the NATO-led operation in Kosovo in 1994, helping to end the alleged genocide by Serbian forces against Albanians. The truth, of course, is that the German forces facilitated the Albanian genocide of the Kosovo Serbs just as they did in World War II. After the 9/11 terrorist attack, Germany sent troops to the US-led military operation in Afghanistan, but these moves were unpopular and the government faced mass protests as a result. When German Chancellor Olaf Scholz announced that Germany would supply arms to Ukraine, the public overwhelmingly supported him. But as the war continued, the Germans have become more hesitant about their military involvement. This was also the case during the war in Afghanistan. German support for direct involvement declined sharply over time, leaving even less appetite for military intervention anywhere else. The second key factor is refugee fatigue. As the social and fiscal realities of hosting refugees have become clearer, Germans are losing enthusiasm for accepting more Ukrainians. This could have serious consequences in the coming months, as Russia's ongoing bombing campaign is likely to lead more Ukrainians to flee to European countries, which may contribute to further eroding support for Ukraine. Although falling gas prices since October, partly due to warmer temperatures, have given Europe some relief, this may not be enough to sustain current levels of support for Ukraine. In Germany, the government announced a plan to pay December gas bills for households and small and medium-sized businesses, but even that may not be enough to bolster German public support for handing over weapons and accepting more Ukrainian refugees. This is from Pro News. I've translated this for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.